Trick or treat everyone, today I am dressed as SpongeBob because I'm gonna rank all of these SpongeBob Halloween specials. Because the last time I ranked SpongeBob holiday specials, the video got so many views. I apologize for the audio and the live action segments being a bit off because my parents were in the other room while I was trying to record, so I was trying not to disturb them. And I had no idea that there was something wrong with the mic or something. I wasn't really sure if it's like the mic or I wasn't speaking loud enough. But point is, I apologize for the audio. And all that matters is that most of this video is just voiceovers anyways. So it's just going to be a problem for like a few segments and that's it. Before we get started with the ranking, I have to go over what episodes count as a Halloween special and which ones don't. I'll be using the SpongeBob fan wiki for reference. For all the episodes talked about in this ranking, all of them would have to be released in the month of October and could be either 11 minutes or 22 minutes, similar to my SpongeBob Christmas special ranking that I made almost a year ago. So unfortunately, I won't be talking about Cuddle Eat Hugs, Legend of Bikini Bottom, the Title Zone crossover, Wormy, the Clarinet Land episode, or that one episode when SpongeBob and Squidward fused together because they did not release those episodes around Halloween time. Hell, Legends and Title Zone, two specials I talked about previously on this channel, were released on January 28th, 2011 and January 13th, 2023, or November 16th, 2010 if you got the Legend of Bikini Bottom DVD, which makes no sense. But Title Zone aired on Friday the 13th, so I guess that balances it out. Now with all out of the way, let's begin. Curse of Bikini Bottom is an episode that I don't really like. Even when I was a little kid, I never really liked this episode. One reason why I watched it back then, because another SpongeBob episode was gonna play after it, an iCarly episode was gonna play after, or even a Mighty B episode was gonna play after. Oh yes, Mighty B, one of my favorite childhood shows, created by someone who at one point in time worked on SpongeBob. Also, fun fact, this episode made me realize that both shows use some of the same music, and now I just can't unhear it. In this episode, Spongy Boy and Patrick go and play in Squidward's shed, because this episode was made in the show's dark, and that means SpongeBob and Patrick have to act like 5-year-olds. While in the shed, they play with Squidward's lawnmower, and then Squidward finds them in the shed and lets them play with his lawnmower because Squidward wants them to off themselves. Damn, Squiddy, I know this era wasn't kind to you, but are you really that desperate to get your own spin-off? Obviously, because of this being Season 6 SpongeBob and Season 6 Patrick, they somehow get to a graveyard and unfortunately shave off the Flying Dutchman's beard while he's trying to tell them off. This obviously makes him very, very angry, and in retaliation, he turns SpongeBob and Patrick into ghosts until his beard grows back. And at first, the two dumbass ding-dongs love being ghosts. And then they unfortunately find out the limitations of what it's like being a ghost. So they go back to the Dutchman so he can turn them back into living organisms. Unfortunately, the Dutchman doesn't want to change them back because, again, these two dumbasses shaved off his trademark beard, make him insecure about going on his date. The two barnacle heads then start to feel bad and decide to give him a makeover so he can go on his date. And so SpongeBob and Patrick can change back to their original form. Then a couple months pass and SpongeBob and Patrick are back to normal. But unfortunately, the Dutchman ends things off this date because she wants to marry her, which is a red flag. Seriously? You date for a few months and you decide to marry them? I can't picture myself doing it, I'm sorry. This episode's plot alone is enough to make me hate it. The only moment I liked was ironic, the part that uses Mighty B music. I feel sorry for the Dutchman here. SpongeBob and Rick just disturbed this man and unknowingly shaved off his beard, even though he's a ghost. Plus, the ending just made the entire episode have no purpose. There's not much to say here. SpongeBob and Patrick are the worst here, and the episode itself is just forgettable. Let's just move on.
Prepare to be ghostified! Ghostified? It's not even a real word.
I know some of you may be thinking I'm cheating by putting these two episodes together, but they're literally part of the same episode block. So with that being, you can't think about one episode without thinking about the other. So first I'll talk about Don't Look Now.
In the episode Don't Look Now, SpongeBob and Patrick are going to see Fisherman 4, a very scary movie. Unfortunately, the movie is too scary for them, and they end up getting traumatized. And Squidward, because he's a piece of shit in this episode, he decides to go and scare these two dumbasses dressed as the fisher. Then SpongeBob and Patrick realizes that it's Squidward, or at least the fisherman eating Squidward, so they decide to beat the shit out of him for revenge. Honestly, this is one of the few times in the Dark Age era where Squidward deserved to get punished. Yeah, sure, SpongeBob and Patrick can get annoying, but they were traumatized from watching a scary movie. And we all had those weird or scary as hell movies that we watched as kids that traumatized us. So seeing Squidward do this to SpongeBob and Patrick does not sit right with me. Especially because SpongeBob has a history of scary movies traumatizing him. So seeing SpongeBob and Patrick do this to Squidward is just hilarious. The ending is also funny as hell too, but unfortunately, they just made SpongeBob and Patrick a bit too screamy in this episode. Next, let's talk about the episode Seance, Shmeance. This one sucks.
It really sucks.
Pretty much what happens is that SpongeBob has a seance, so he can learn how to make a sandwich for not Old Man Jenkins. But unfortunately, summoning the ghost chef, and after having him make the sandwich, summons more ghosts somehow. And unfortunately, the ghosts don't want to leave. So Mr. Krab shows up and puts them all in a bubble and pops it. And the next day, SpongeBob makes the sandwich for not Old Man Jenkins and the episode ends. Yep, this episode is shit. Ghost chef that SpongeBob summons is a piece of shit. The sandwiches he makes are literally wood with schmackle and shellac, whereas the other ghosts are just annoying as hell. The episode starts off decent, but when the ghost chef Rusty appears, everything just goes to shit. The only parts of this episode I liked was with Patrick. The only times I laughed while watching this episode was when Patrick realized that SpongeBob was trying to summon ghosts.
I rewatched both these episodes multiple times, and every time Seance was the worst part of it. And Don't Look Now was a pretty decent watch. If it was just Don't Look Now, it would be a bit higher, but since both these episodes aren't as a block, unfortunately it's not.
Giant mine. And here you go.
The Night Patty is a very forgettable episode. Until I started making this ranking, I forgot that this episode existed. I just remembered it as a fever dream with a female Squidward and not Feratu. And unfortunately for me, it wasn't a fever dream. Pretty much what happens in this episode is that Patrick takes SpongeBob to the Krusty Krab, but at night, and it's revealed to be a restaurant for weird and freaky creatures at night, which is an interesting concept wasted on a very forgettable episode. Not much happens here. SpongeBob plays the other fry code because of something I forgot about, and it's random shit after random shit. The story should have been more consistent. Yeah, it's fine to make your story a little bit random, but I feel like your episode needs to be longer and to have more story for it to be more random. Like if Plankton or the Flying Dutchman showed up to cause chaos or something, it's just missed opportunity, nothing more. I really loved watching Ghoul Fools when I was a kid, and now as an adult, I still love to watch it. Pretty much what happens here is that there's a ghost houseboat that crashes in the jellyfish fields, and SpongeBob and Patrick, because they wandered to the houseboat, has to help the ghost pirates get a part for their boat, or else they won't get their souls back. Damn, that's a bit dark when you think about it. They run to the Krusty Krab and get Mr. Krabs to help them get their souls back from the ghost pirates. Krabs decides to help them, so him and Squidward can get some of the Ghost Pirate's treasure. Also, Sandy's here and other than Milkshake Grinders and saving Bud. I forgot she was in this episode. She just falls into the background, to be honest. They go out to the houseboat to the ghost captain to give him the part to fix their boat, and Krabs, Squidward, and Patrick steal the pirate's treasure, and the captain sends them to hell. I'm not kidding, how else am I supposed to interpret this scene?
Hi, neighbor.
Sandy frees them from hell, and it turns out that the treasure belongs to the Flying Dutchman. And because Spongy Boy is a tattletale snitch, he snitches on them, and the Flying Dutchman comes to release his laugh, aka he just sends them all to hell, ending the episode. Yeah, this episode is not perfect and does suffer from season 6 syndrome in some parts, but it's still enjoyable. I like a lot of stuff about this episode, like the Ghost Pirate song, seeing Krabs being sent to hell, Patrick torturing a talking donut in hell, the final chase with the Dutchman, the fact that it's the first good episode with the Dutchman and his raking, and that this episode gave us more insight to the Flying Dutchman by introducing us to his rival that unfortunately only appears in this episode. But the Minion Pirates reappear in Seance Shmeance for some reason. I don't know why. The ending here is a bit dark, random, and obviously is not canon because again, the episode ends with everyone being sent to hell and the Dutchman forcing them all to work in the Krusty Krab, which is already why being sent to hell because Krabs is a dick and Plankton's always trying to steal the formula. So I guess Dutchie was just really mad. I don't blame him. If someone tried to steal my treasure hundreds of years ago, I would probably do the same thing.
How's the haul, Mr. Squidward?
Everyone's paying with bone.
Those must be worth something.
Tabit in the Kelp is a Gal Pal episode, and it's a good one. I'm going to talk about the Gal Pal episodes another time, so I'll just keep this brief. So in this Gal Pal adventure, the Gal Pals, Sandy, Mrs. Puff, and Karen, take Pearl to a cabin in the woods to scare her as a way of hazing her into their group. But Pearl brings SpongeBob to scare the gals because he's a little chaotic man. Then obviously the Gal Pals and Pearl get scared by not SpongeBob because he ended up getting lost at their mishap with their bags. Instead, the Gal Pals are scared by Flipperty Gibbets, the ex-Gal Pal. The Gal Pals run back to their cabin to GTFO, but unfortunately SpongeBob, who at this point has finally got there, gets captured by Flipperty Gibbets. And it turns out that that's not it was just someone who wanted to sell them something. Then the real Flipperty Gibbet shows up and everyone runs off as the episode ends. Honestly, it's been a while since I've seen a Gal Pal episode, and this is the one of the only random pairings of characters that I actually like. If you never watched this episode, you would think that pairing together the only girl characters in the main cast would be weird, like when Family Guy had Adam West on trial and for some reason they had most of the jury be random people they had interacted with at one point in time, and even his own family. It doesn't make sense to put people that he knew in the jury, but the Family Guy writers don't think and probably haven't even seen sunlight in years. But Sandy, Mrs. Puff, Karen, and Pearl are a group pairing that work surprisingly well. I guess it's because Mr. Krabs and Plankton could be a handful to deal with, plus SpongeBob being a chaotic cheese block. So I guess that just need people who understand how annoying the men their lives are, which makes sense, and it's nice to see these characters mellow out after being treated like shit by the writers. I hope when the Sandy spin-off movie comes out that the Gal Pals are in it as supporting characters, because I don't think there's anyone else that could fill that role. And if Karen's not in it for some reason, I can picture Squidina taking her place as a reference to the Patrick Star Show, which I can see working. Hopefully the writers won't find a way to ruin it because it's a movie about Sandy. That concept alone will make people want to watch it.
Another pine cone on a stick. I love it.
This is Boomerang from Cartoon Network.
So usually in the middle of these 15 or longer minute videos, I like to put a little commercial break in between. So you can have some time to grab a coffee, go to the bathroom, or whatever the hell you do in the middle of these videos. I have no idea. So I decided to rank all the SpongeBob DVDs to Halloween theme because who doesn't want a bonus ranking in a ranking? That's gonna make them not want to skip these sections anymore. Now let's start off this ranking with the worst SpongeBob Halloween DVD.
Legend of Boo-Kini Bottom. The Legend of Boo-Kini Bottom kinda sucks. The menus are just PNGs, and there's only one episode and behind the scenes extra. But at least the international releases had more episodes to compensate. I wish I bought that version instead because if you're living in the US, that's all you're gonna get. Halloween. Halloween is the first Halloween SpongeBob DVD compilation, and it's miles better than Bikini Bottom. There's some really good extras here, and the bonus episodes here are bangers. But the main reason why this isn't number one is because the menu has no music. Yes, sure, it's PNGs, but at least it's a background instead of it being a iTunes band. The only thing that would make these menus better is if it had music. Ghoul Fools. Ghoul Fools is ironically the best SpongeBob DVD compilation ever released, and that's counting the international release of Bikini Bottom. Better than the Curse of Bikini Bottom, the episode selections are bangers. Yes, even money talks because it's just Mr. Krabs being tortured by his talking money. In the end, he ends up owing his soul to every other dark entity and SpongeBob for some fucking reason. It's ironically the funniest way to end a SpongeBob episode.
Now with this little mini ranking out of the way, now you can go back and enjoy your commercial break.
Now return to Boomerang from Cartoon Network.
Squidferatu and Slappy Caze. It was not sound right. Are both episodes that are good, especially Squidferatu. In Squidferatu, Squidward and SpongeBob go to Nosferatu's house to give him his mail because for some random reason, the mailman keeps leaving Nosferatu's mail at Squidward's house, which doesn't make sense until you realize that Squidward doesn't really like the mailman and that the mailman is scared of him. Yeah, if I was Squidward's mailman, I would probably be scared too. So they get to Nosferatu's house and shit happens because it's a talking kitchen utensil, a big-nosed squid, and a vampire in the same room. And after that, Nosferatu gives Squidward his mail and the episode ends. And in the episode Slappy Caze, I really hope I'm pronouncing it right. Nosferatu's assistant, Slappy, goes around doing random shit, and that's it. I like Squidferatu. The shit that happens here is just hilarious, which is something I can't say about Slappy Caze. Unlike Squidferatu, the shit that happens here is kind of funny, but Squidferatu has the funnier jokes. However, this episode is alright. I don't think that Slappy is likable enough to carry a whole episode. Now in Squidferatu, he acts like an assistant slash translator for Nosferatu. So unfortunately, because of me not really liking Slappy Caze, I'm putting it in the bottom ranking. If it was just Squidferatu, I'll be putting it in the top 3. But I know my rules, and I do not want to contradict myself in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds, college students, and board office workers.
The master bids you good night.
To not be confused with the Legend of Bikini Bottom anthology, The Legend of Boo-Kini Bottom is a stop-motion SpongeBob special, and it's the second stop-motion holiday special in the show's history. This is also the third special that Screen Novelties has worked on, and unfortunately, it's the last special that they have worked on.
Pretty much what happens here is that SpongeBob is scared of all the scary things in Halloween because he's SpongeBob. And Patrick tells him that scary things are funny and that scary equals funny. Wait, did Patrick watch the Death Town scene in Bullet Train? Because that was honestly the funniest part of that movie. Well, that plus seeing Joey King get ran over by a truck by Tangerine. At first, Spongy doesn't know if he should listen to Patrick because he's dumb, and after having some fun in some haunted houses, his advice, a very stupid piece of advice, works. And he's now no longer scared until the Flying Dutchman appears and steals all of his friends' souls. Because, for some reason, he wants to scare the hell out of SpongeBob. And this obviously scares hell out of SpongeBob. Scares him to the bone, actually. When he comes back to save his friends, and this time he's not scared because he cares about his friends. Then the Dutchman taunts SpongeBob for trying to scare him, and Plankton, who is now the Dutchman's henchman, gives him the idea to go into SpongeBob's brain. When it goes how you'd expect it to go. And now, out of fear, the Dutchman lets SpongeBob and friends, plus Plankton, go. In SpongeBob words, that scary can equal scary and also funny. Again, go watch Bullet Train. That movie is hilarious as hell.
This episode is good, but the story is a bit basic.
I like the stop motion, voice acting, Patrick helping SpongeBob not be scared, and the fact that they made Mr. Lawrence save us in an episode.
Yes, master.
I think this story reminds me of something that would happen in a Rake and Bass special or Scooby-Doo or something. But it's okay, either way I had fun watching it. Sometimes a basic story with memorable characters, great voice acting, and great animation, both stop motion and 2D animation similar to something from the 70s, is all we need. Unfortunately, it's not number one in the Rake. Yeah, I know, what a surprise, and I don't have much to say about this episode. Plus, unlike Ghoul Fools, there's no more Season 6 syndrome, which is always a win-win.
And guess what? Krabby Patties are people!
In the episode, A Ghost of Plankton, Plankton decides to become a ghost so he can steal the Krabby Patty formula. But unfortunately, he doesn't know how to use his new ghost powers because he just became a ghost. Then the Flying Dutchman shows up to help Plankton by teaching him how to use his powers. Then, because Plankton didn't know the save's combination, fails and tries to get back to his body, which isn't dead but is just in suspended animation because killing Plankton is just too mature. It would most likely make the kids watching this episode cry. Then the Dutchman steals Plankton's body during his funeral and everyone proceeds to go and beat the shit out of him because he's in Plankton's body. Then Dutchie decides to give Plankton back his body because it sucks, and the episode ends with Plankton back in his body and everyone beating the shit out of him. The end. No wonder he went on a killing spree the following Christmas. Other than Plankton not realizing that he can possess crabs while being a ghost, this episode is funny as hell. Plus, it's nice to see the Dutchman here. Him training newly dead ghosts makes sense when you realize he's the scariest thing alive other than the human Dalek Sec and James Charles. Also, the fact that everyone thought he was dead and do a funeral to celebrate is just hilarious. Makes you think, how did this get past censors? Scaredy Pants and I Was Once a Teenage Gary are both really good and iconic episodes. If for some random reason you never watched episodes, I will briefly talk about the plots of each episode because these episodes have been talked to death for all the right reasons. In Scaredy Pants, SpongeBob wants to prove to everyone that he can be scary. So to help with Patrick, he ends up dressing up as the Flying Dutchman. Then they go to a party at the Krusty Krab to scare everyone in Bikini Bottom. When everyone realizes that it's just SpongeBob and they start to laugh at him, then the real Flying Dutchman appears to steal their souls and to mock SpongeBob's costume. Then when he takes the costume off, him along with everyone else but Patrick runs away after seeing SpongeBob while most of his sponginess. I don't know how to describe it. This moment was really funny and really scary depending on who you are. I honestly find this scene very funny. Honestly, I could go on for hours talking about this episode. I liked everything about it, including the fact that he got Sarah Paxton to make a cameo to save his classic line.
Look, it's the haunted mattress!
And there's a scene where the Dutchman tells everyone to party that he hates it when people dress up like him, and Squidward just goes and removes his hat and beard to look less like the Flying Dutchman. Just kills me every time. I watched this episode hundreds of times, and this part never gets old, like Patrick making SpongeBob these random ass shoes. I like SpongeBob and Patrick here, like a Bikini Bottom and Ghoul Fools, but unlike those episodes, Patrick had some brain cells, which is why this episode is up in the spot and why it's B-side and drag it down.
Now to talk about its B-side. I was a teenage Gary. Spoiler alert, it is scary as hell.
This episode is infamous for having SpongeBob turning into a snail because Squidward accidentally injected SpongeBob with snail plasma because Squidward failed to take care of Gary, causing him to become sick. No wonder Gary hates Squidward so much. This is definitely one of Squidward's worst moments. Well, Squidward turns to a snail by the end too, so I guess it balances it out. It's an episode I have a lot of nostalgia for, which is why it's in this slot. Plus, both episodes, in my opinion, are the perfect pairing of episodes. You can't think of one episode without thinking about the other unless you're watching the show on streaming or something.
Hey, what do you know? I scared him!
Originally, I was gonna put Planet of the Jellyfish number 1, but unfortunately, it's not a Halloween episode, so I couldn't count it. But I was able to keep Krabby Patty Creature feature because, like all the other episodes in this ranking, it aired in October. In this episode, Krabs tries to make a better version of the Krabby Patty to appeal to the young hipsters, and with the help of Sandy, they create the new Krabby Patty. And everyone but SpongeBob likes this version of the Krabby Patty. Fortunately, Spongy doesn't eat them because everyone ends up turning into weird looking Krabby Patty zombies that want you to eat them because why not? They're burgers, man. And everything that happens next is just comedy gold. I'm not gonna spoil the shit that happens here because it's a newer episode, but I recommend that you watch this if you think modern SpongeBob is garbage, because sometimes this era could surprise you. I can see this episode becoming a classic banger like Scaredy Pants in a few years. I tried finding reviews of this episode on YouTube, and unfortunately it hasn't been talked about as much as some of the other episodes in this ranking, which is a shame because it's a really good and creepy episode that teaches people to never modify what's already perfect so it won't turn weird and make people sick. I guess the people at Chuck E. Cheese's never watched this episode. To me, this is my number 1 best SpongeBob Halloween special. And if you think I'm wrong, let me know in the comments.
Thank you all for watching. I know it's been a while since I made a ranking, and that's just because these videos take a while to make, even though they're the ones that get the most views. These videos usually take weeks to write, and I didn't want to half-ass it like Watch Mojo. Hopefully I'm not uploading this the day after Halloween because then I'll just suck. I have been very busy, which is why it's being posted either on Halloween or the day after. Anyways, this has been Alberto, and happy Halloween and happy early Thanksgiving.